you're a college football diehard, this is the place for you. Heck, you want to learn more? This is the place for you. Thank you for joining us here today. If you love college football, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We got a lot of great talking points on the board today, from Tennessee and their violations to Northwestern, who I think should be their future head coach possibly. And we got some great recruiting breakdowns that I want to get into, and the Big 12 preseason media poll release. I got some points and interesting facts there to throw your way, but we also have SEC Media Days going on as you are watching this, so we can talk about some of that later this week if you are interested in that, which we will talk about because it's all we got to talk about, because college football is all we talk about. So, welcome in. Let's go ahead and dive right into this for Tennessee. Vols fans, congratulations, no bowl ban. That's huge for you guys. I know that makes you happy, and it actually makes me happy because the players that are there now should not be punished for things that happened in the past. Obviously, Tennessee, no postseason ban, but the penalties included 5 years of probation, 28 scholarships lost over the probation period, which they kind of already started self-imposing those scholarship restrictions themselves, and a 6-year show cause for former coach Jeremy Pruitt. They were also fined more than $8 million by the NCAA Division I committee, and the fine is supposed to be the equivalent to the financial impact the school would face by missing out in a postseason game in the 2023 and 2024 seasons. But there was 18 level 1 violations. This could have gotten really bad and possibly teetering the line of lack of institutional control. But all of this has kind of been taken care of, and I know a lot of people said school like this gets by, big school, SEC school. For situations like this punishment should require, or these infractions should require a bowl ban. But these investigations take too long. I think this stuff requires a bowl ban, but Tennessee doesn't deserve one because none of these players or coaches are involved in that, and you got to stop punishing future players for past mistakes and past coaching staff mistakes. The one who got punished was Jeremy Pruitt. He got punished hard, which he rightfully deserved so. So, for Tennessee, I think them having to watch Pruitt coach their team while cheating that hard and not being successful was punishment enough. But for things to get better in the future, and for the NCAA, if they want to actually take away postseasons or stuff from teams, I know you don't want to rush investigations, but this took too long. These kind of investigations need to be rushed because the people that are directly involved are the ones that need to be punished, not the people in the future. So I actually like this, and I know Tennessee had a lot of success, and I think that's why some people believe that they weren't punished as hard, but I believe this was a good ruling on this case. So congrats, Vols fans. Good for you guys. And Pruitt, by the way, people are saying this may damage his future in coaching, which honestly, rightfully so, I think the punishment fits, and he doesn't deserve to coach, in my opinion, after committing things like that. And I know people say that kind of stuff's legal now, you can do NIL, but it's not the fact. It's about cheating the game in itself, and I know people say other programs do that, but they weren't doing it necessarily to that level, and obviously there's different ways other programs have done it in the past, but still, I don't like the game and the integrity of college football being treated as such. So now, talking about coaches that are gone, Pat Fitzgerald was fired over that whole hazing scandal. I don't want to go into the deep details about that. You can look into that on your own if you are not informed on that situation. But David Braun was elevated from defensive coordinator to the interim coach for Northwestern for this season. But I got some names that I want to bring up who could be their head coaches for this future season, or for the future. Ones I want to bring up that are kind of one and the same, well, one had more success. David Shaw and Derek Mason, both coached at very high-profile private academic institutions. So I believe that these, and especially for Shaw, he had great success. I just think the transition into this new era of college football kind of hurt Stanford, and the magic that he had there was kind of diminishing, and it just was not the best time for all those things to be overlapping while at Stanford. So he stepped away, which was great on him for doing that. But I think he's still a great coach. And Derek Mason, who actually coached under Shaw at Stanford with their elite defenses back in the day, who was at Vanderbilt, obviously nothing insane out of Vandy, but still had them respectable except for his final year or so, and then the weird stint at Auburn, but that was a terrible staff to just be together. However, Derek Mason, I think he would be a strong fit. I mean, coaching at Northwestern, the demands are similar as Vandy. Same for Shaw when he was at Stanford. But I think those are two coaches who know what is coming with the job when they get there and don't necessarily have to be surprised by some of the restrictions or find or overcomplicate ways of working around restrictions that I think those coaches could do. And then also Willie Fritz, Tulane's head coach. I know he just came back. I believe he almost went to Georgia Tech, didn't. But people are saying, why would he leave? He just showed he went back. But if he emulates another season like this, and there will be other jobs open by this time, but if he has another great season just like that, you could see Fritz being available for a lot of these jobs, especially if he emulates, like I said, what he did in the previous year. He would be a very hot commodity, and Tulane kind of has some kind of academic restrictions, so you could see a similar thing there for him as well, and a great coach right now. Now, who I think would be the perfect hire is Jim Leonhard, the former interim for Wisconsin last year before they hired Luke Fickell. Obviously, you can't not hire Luke Fickell, one of the greatest coaches in college football, super hot commodity. But Jim Leonhard's one of the best, if not top 5 defensive minds in all of college football. He took over after Paul Chryst was fired, had them respectable. His defenses were always elite except for 2018. But he's had top 10 defenses each year except for 2018. It's 2018. He is an elite playmaker while he was at Wisconsin. He knows everything about defense that you need to know. He had Wisconsin operating at an insanely elite level with not necessarily the most talented players. Imagine this is Northwestern, so it'll be restricted, but if you want a guy with this kind of caliber who can do that, he can do it at your school too, at Northwestern, and he can help bring in recruits with his defensive mind that necessarily wouldn't have gone there in the first place, especially with him being a former NFL player and All-American in college. He can relate to the kids a lot better, and he'd be a great man to run your program. Now, I've seen a lot of smoke, not a lot of smoke, just kind of fabricated smoke, I guess, around Brian Hartline, the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. I don't think that's going to happen at all. Would it be great? Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen. I just wanted to throw that in there. All right, now let's move on to the Big 12 preseason media poll that came out, some other stuff around it. But there were 6 teams, I believe, who received a first-place vote. Obviously, Texas at 1 with 41 first-place votes. Kansas State at 2 with 14 first-place votes. Oklahoma at 3 with 4 first-place votes. Texas Tech at 4 with 4 first-place votes. TCU at 5 with 3 first-place votes. And Oklahoma State, surprisingly, actually, at 7 with 1 first-place vote. Which, I guess Mike Gundy's the coach, so you never really know, and it's the Big 12. I believe the past 2 Big 12 champions were actually preseason picked 6th in the preseason polls. So you never know what could happen with this conference. It is a circus. But I looked into it, and Texas had 41 first-place votes. It's the first time they've been atop the Big 12 preseason polls since 2009, back when they actually had divisions. They were picked at the top of their division, but also technically would have been number 1 overall. So been a long time since Texas has been there. And then Oklahoma, I was interested, the last time they were not top 3 was actually 2015. They were actually picked to finish 3rd as well. And if I'm correct, they won the Big 12 that year. So that's a good thing to look at there if you are Venables in Oklahoma, but it's been a while since they have not been 1 or 2 in the Big 12 preseason poll. And for Texas, they obviously are at 1, deservedly so, with the insanely talented roster they have between great offensive linemen, Kelvin Banks, you got Xavier Worthy at receiver, Jatavion Sanders, tight end, and then obviously you have Quinn Ewers, insane. But I want to go down to number 9 in the Big 12 preseason media poll, Kansas. Behind UCF, Oklahoma State, Baylor, and TCU. Obviously, TCU, you can pick and choose there, but Kansas was 2nd, along with Kansas State and I believe Oklahoma State, with 4 selections onto the Big 12 preseason team. And one of their players was quarterback Jalen Daniels, who was preseason Offensive Player of the Year. So you have elite players, and you have your number 2 in returning production in the country and your best season in a long time, and I mean a long time. And he's preseason picked to win Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. You have great quarterback room depth. You have no back-to-back away games. Like I said, number 2 in returning production. You got incredible momentum to build off of. I just don't see how they end up at 9th. Is this, after last year, they dealt with injuries as well, so it's not like they could have won more games easily if things had been better. Obviously, you can say that for any team, but specifically for Kansas, the injuries were a problem when Bean had to come in for Daniels. But he ended up becoming a great quarterback in and of his own, which makes their quarterback room, in my opinion, arguably the best depth in the Big 12 at that position. But put some respect on their name, man. Just because their name is Kansas, that past that is connected with that name does not necessarily mean that their future of 2023 is going to tab them at middle of the road. I think you could put them, if they had a Baylor Bear on their helmet or an Oklahoma State Cowboy on their helmet, you could have them at 3, 4, or 5. Maybe not 3. Maybe 4 or 5 would be more realistic. But I'm not saying touting them to win or put them at number 1. Just put some respect on this Kansas team. Leipold and the Jayhawks deserve that. They're a damn good football team. They need more respect. Now, the other Kansas team, Kansas State, they're the first defending champion since 2014 Baylor to not be preseason number 1 in the next poll. But the good news for Kansas State fans is Baylor won in 2013. They weren't number 1 preseason in 2014. But they actually were the champions, well, co-champions of the Big 12 in 2014 with TCU. So that little history tidbit right there is on your side, Wildcats fans, so that's awesome. And then Brett Yormark had a comment about Oklahoma and Texas's success on the recruiting front and everything else around the conference. He is the new commissioner for those who don't know of the Big 12. He said, I don't think they've carried the conference in recruiting. They haven't been in our championship game the past few years. Obviously, Texas and Oklahoma carry the conference in recruiting and putting out draft picks, everything else. But he's not wrong about the championship game. However, Oklahoma does carry their success highly in the Big 12 championship game. They got miles upon miles ahead of people in Big 12 titles. So, but he's not wrong when it comes to Texas and winning those games for how strongly Texas pounds their chest about being Texas. You hadn't won since 2009. Yeah, they haven't won a Big 12 title since 2009. Kansas State's won 2 Big 12 titles since the last time Texas has won a Big 12 title. So he's not wrong on that front. Oklahoma did have a little down year last year, but it's not, I don't expect them to be that way again, and this is the brightest Texas has looked in a while, but that gets said a lot. But if we're being honest here, it really is. However, what he said, besides throwing out the recruiting about them competing in the last few years, he is not wrong. So I like that from him, showing strong for his conference and pounding his chest for the Big 12. He is a great commissioner. He's going to do great things there. Now we move into recruiting, starting first with Arkansas. Braylon Russell, 4-star running back, actually, who had been committed to Arkansas before decommitted. He is now committed again to Arkansas, adding on to an already great offensive class they have, and I believe he will stay this time. He kind of shopped around once he started getting bigger offers. Then I think he realized Arkansas was the place he wanted to be. But he's the number 4 player at Arkansas and number 22 running back nationally. Big get for an already star-studded offensive class coming in for 2024. They also added on the defensive side of the ball 4-star cornerback Selman Bridges, the number 11 player in Texas, number 6 cornerback nationally, and get this, number 50 player overall nationally. This is huge. You beat Texas out for him. You go into the heart of Texas, rip out a recruit from your rival and future conference foe. That's big. Arkansas now has the number 17th ranked class for 2024. And the way they're recruiting right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they finished in the top 15, if they can keep this momentum going and Pittman gets the Hogs rolling even more. So moving on to one of their SEC West foes, Auburn landed 4-star Jalen Crawford, the number 1 cornerback in Georgia and number 15 cornerback nationally. Huge pickup for them, especially with that already star-studded cornerback room for 2024. You're adding Jalen Crawford onto 4-star Amon Lane, the number 1 cornerback in Alabama, number 17 cornerback nationally, and adding him also onto 4-star Jaden Lewis, the number 2 cornerback in Alabama, and number 23 cornerback nationally. So Auburn's creating an elite cornerback room on that side of the defensive side of the ball for 2024. And if you look at Auburn in the recent past, they really have been quite successful at producing great cornerbacks and putting them into the league. So it's another trend they keep going, and Trevon Reed down there and Zach Etheridge look like they know what they're doing. And you also have Auburn sitting at number 37 in the recruiting rankings, which we all know they'll end up vaulting up eventually later in the cycle. We also know that Hugh Freeze has to prove on the field. You got all the hype off the field. You can bring people in, yes, but you also have to prove that you can put it together on the football field, which he most likely will. But for Auburn fans who don't necessarily like hearing the 37 behind the recruiting ranking, this is your average recruit number is 90.83, which is only behind Clemson, Texas A&M, Alabama, Florida, Ohio State, and Georgia. So the quality of recruit right now is great. Now you just need some on-field results, which you also have that Big Cat weekend coming up, which you can add even more. But still, Auburn's looking hot. Keep waiting for that vault that will happen for the Tigers. Now moving on to their Iron Bowl rival, Alabama. 4-star Casey Poe, the number 5 interior offensive lineman, number 25 player in Texas, committed to the Tide. Big get for them. As we know, Alabama loves their offensive linemen, which is why it has also helped them be so dominant for Lord knows forever. But they also add on 4-star Caleb Odom, the number 6 tight end nationally, number 12 player overall in Georgia. He is also the number 66 player overall nationally. This is a big pickup after missing out on Davon Mitchell, who eventually committed to Oklahoma. But for Bama, welcome back into the top 10. We knew you would always be back here in the class rankings. You can keep them out as long as you, or you can't keep them out as long as you want. They vaulted back up, and they're only going to keep getting hotter. As we know, Saban is the king of college football recruiting. Well, Kirby Smart's kind of getting there. But now we move on to another elite recruiter in South Beach. Miami Hurricanes got composite 5-star wide receiver Josh Sisa Trader, the number 5 player in Florida and number 25 player overall nationally. Massive in-state win here. Elite talent out of Florida. You want to keep these guys in your state. If you're a Cristobal, you are in one of the biggest recruiting hotbeds in the country. Big win there. Also another in-state get, 4-star defensive lineman Artavius Jones, the number 18th player in Florida and number 19th defensive lineman nationally. Keep locking down that elite state talent. Like I said, Cristobal, not many people can recruit like Mario can. So they now sit at 14 in the 2024 class rankings. He knows how to get elite talent onto his campus. Now bringing back up Wisconsin, as we did earlier, but we have Wisconsin getting 4-star edge Anele Lafale, the number 2 player in Hawaii and number 20th edge nationally. Huge, adding on to already elite defensive players. That is a big get, far away from home too. So that's a nice grab. Now you also have 4-star Dylan Jones, the number 4 player in Maryland and the 9th ranked running back nationally. Adding on to a history of great running backs in Wisconsin, you restock that room with 4-star Dylan Jones, a great player. So they now have the number 18th class for 2024. Now I got these 2 schools. They don't have one recruiting player in their recruiting class, but they recently have acquired just a single player. But Missouri, I want to highlight this 4-star. They got linebacker Brian Huff. He's the number 8 player in Arkansas, and he's 6'4", 225. Watching this kid's film, I feel like he's a little bit underrated, but he seemed insane. Just his patience in the run defense and his awareness about finding the ball and reading the field were great. He's big and he can blow up the line. He can get through if he wants, but he's also incredible at not overthinking it or rushing to a thought and just chasing, especially in misdirection situations. He can shed blocks great. His patience is incredible with his size. He can be a giant and just blow you over, or he can perfectly wait and figure out where you're going to be, and he'll hit the crap out of you. That's for sure. He had a strong 22 with 92 tackles, and that's most likely going to increase into his senior year. But this kid's going to be great, and that's a big win for Missouri. You go into rival territory and take out a top 10 player from their state. We have Cash McCollum commits to North Texas, the 3-star quarterback. And Cash is just a great name, by the way, for a North Texas quarterback. The mean green got Cash at QB with those uniforms. That's awesome. But I think he's a little bit of an overlooked talent. He had offers from some smaller Power 5 schools, or smaller FBS schools, and then some FCS schools. But he's 6'4", 213. He's got good size. He comes out of China Springs, Texas. He led his school to the 4A Division I state championship. He won MVP, and his team actually trailed. This is fun to listen to. They were down 21-0, scored 24 unanswered to come back and win the game, and he won MVP. He threw for 3,201 yards and 37 touchdowns. He rushed for almost 500 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns, and he was their 4A Division I All-State Offensive MVP honor. Looks like he's a great high school quarterback. He's North Texas' first quarterback, I believe, since the 2021 class, which helped bring him in there because their quarterback room is so old. He's going to have a lot of flexibility in that position when he gets there. But I think this is a great talent get for North Texas. You got to think this kid has tremendous upside and great size, especially for a Group of 5 quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if we're hearing his name among the best Group of 5 quarterbacks in the future, and maybe just the way with college football in reality actually is now, he could be one of these players we see in the future that transfer to a bigger program who's lacking need at quarterback with how great his play could be in the future. But for North Texas, great get. Thank y'all for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you love college football. We got it. 24/7, 365. We live, breathe, eat, and sleep college football. You want me to talk about something? Leave a comment. I'll get on it. I'm here for you and all your college football needs. Thank y'all for tuning in and have a great week.